Fantastic. And so welcome back to our session of these digital wisdom meditations. It's such a treat to see you all again, such a nice opportunity to be together with you on a Saturday morning, my time, Saturday evening for some of you, I suppose. So this is, with these ongoing sessions, again, we'll be following the same format that we've been doing before, where I'll have a few brief introductory words, a little bit brief introduction in the beginning, then longer explanation, longer meditation at the end. And then if you weren't with me last time, last time we talked on Saturday, I mentioned that I was going to experiment with Zoom breakout rooms. And I believe that I'm optimistic that I think we can make this work. And so the idea with these breakout rooms is after we finish the recording, after we finish the original 45 minutes, if there's anyone who does have the time to stay on, what we'll do is break everybody out into pairs to give a chance for folks to share. And I'll have an exercise that we can do, an exercise called mindful listening that we'll do. But I'll explain all that at the end. So that'll be this 45 minutes plus then up to 15 minutes for that, some of that pair discussion at the end. And then it's an opportunity for us all. It helps, I found in my experience, it helps a lot to be able to share and listen and to do these practices together as well. Helps ground these things. Fantastic. So for our preliminary meditation, what we've been looking at a lot recently and what we'll keep doing as our basic preliminary meditation is what's called mindfulness of the body. And this is bringing our attention into our body and using that to do a couple of things. One is to make sure that we can ground ourselves in our present moment experience of things. And second, to begin, and through grounding ourselves in the present moment and focusing on our body itself, we begin to get more control over our attention. And getting control over our attention, especially to the degree that we focus on our breathing, all of these things can help a lot to trigger this, this relaxation response, to trigger our body and mind to settle in to a more peaceful, more calm state, which then makes it easier for us to learn, to interact with others, and so forth. So for this preliminary meditation, we can begin by finding a comfortable seat. So we can close your eyes if you like, or keep them open, or just look down a bit. And we first just make sure that we're settling into our body a bit. Might need to stretch a little bit to feel more comfortable. You can begin just by taking three deep breaths. First, we breathe in deeply, breathe out. With the second breath, as we breathe in and out, we relax. And with the third breath, we just think, what is our intention? What is our intention for this time? So for all of us, our intention may include just to become more peaceful, more centered, more calm, but maybe you have other intentions you want to bring in, other benefits you want to get out of this time here. So you can spend a few moments just holding those in your mind, respecting your own intention, having some decision to use this time to further that goal. And we can begin to become aware of our surroundings in this present moment. Perhaps there are noises in the environment around us. We become aware of the room around us, or space. All of this is happening in the present moment. And we feel our body within this space. We feel where our body is. Become aware of how we're sitting. We can become aware of any specific feelings in our body, any areas of tension or relaxation. If we feel any tension, we sometimes just by breathing in, feeling that area of our body expand a bit with the in-breath and relax a bit with the out-breath. That alone can be helpful. Within our body, we become aware of the feeling of our breath coming in and out. Just ask yourself, where am I feeling my breath in my body? Just beginning with a very diffuse, open awareness. Just feeling it wherever it is in our body. With each in-breath, feeling our body expand, stretch a bit, even tiny, tiny amounts. With each out-breath, feeling our body relax a bit. We can Open our eyes and relax our concentration and rise from meditation. So, as I've been mentioning in previous sessions, reflecting on this term, that we as human beings, we are storytelling primates. I keep coming back to this because I like it. It feels like a bit of a mental stretch, right? We stretch to these very simple aspects of ourselves and very, you know, sublime aspects of ourselves, if you want, or not so sublime, depending on the stories that we're telling. So this idea of becoming, of tapping into the present moment, this is what you could think of as like real-time information flow. So when we think about, with the meditation we just did, and we begin to think about the sounds around us, the space that we're in and so forth, our senses are flowing information in to our mind all the time. Right? This constant physical sensations, for example, our breathing, posture, sounds, smells, tastes, touch. These things are coming in all the time. And there's also, in real time, there's all this mental activity, thinking. So sometimes we refer to these as six senses. So six senses doesn't mean that you're psychic. It just means that you've got your five senses, and then you've got your mental awareness. And these are these sort of six streams of information that are flowing through our experience at all times. Now, all of our stories, so to speak, they're all in that sixth sense, that mental awareness, right? Our stories are all in the mental space, right? It's only our mind that can tell stories, and it's only our mind that can go into the past, and only our mind that can go into the future. Our mind is responsible for remembering. Our senses can't remember. I'm actually very skeptical about the possibility of inventing time machines. I actually don't think it's possible. It's ever going to happen. Your senses are always only experiencing the present moment. But your mind can remember the past, but it's very different, right? And your mind can think about the future, imagine the future, but your senses, you can never directly experience the future. So our senses are only tapped into the present. There's an enormous amount of information that's coming to us in the present moment all the time, but normally we ignore most of it. We just sort of ignore most of it if it doesn't seem like it's relevant. Or we use it, like we have the TV playing or the radio playing or whatever, we use it to sort of feed into our mental experience and sort of sweep us along with certain stories. So sometimes one of the reasons why people play the TV in the background or the radio in the background gives some sense of like company, that there's something happening there, and it sort of alleviates some sense of loneliness, but it gives a script for our mental activity. Because normally our mental activity is very free form and a little bit not under our control. And here's a bit of the irony, right? If you're just, when I was a little kid, I used to watch TV a lot. Like my brother and I could just sit and watch like 7-8 hours of TV, no problem. Right? It's just sit on the couch, just watch TV, and for some people, that's still maybe a habit that they have. In that case, the TV is running the show, so to speak, right? The TV is dictating what you're thinking about. You're thinking about whatever the people who did the TV programming decided to put on at that time. So I decided that I didn't really like that. And now, of course, we have the internet, which makes you feel it's a bit more interactive, but it's a little questionable how interactive it is. But with just our mental thought process, it feels like it should be us calling the show, but often it's just habitual thought patterns that are not exactly what we mean to be thinking about, or what we want to be thinking about. So, for example, there's a lot of things that our mind can tend to obsess on, but one is, if you have a partner, for example, it's very easy to obsess if they've done something to upset you. For example, it's very easy to obsess on what they did that upset you, for example, and think about that again and again and again and again. Now, if I were to ask you consciously, do you think it would be helpful if you just sort of ruminate on what this person did that really annoyed you? Right? Do you think that would be a good way to spend 30 minutes? So, okay, you've got 30 minutes free. What would you like to do? What do you think? What about ruminating on and blaming your partner for something, just meditating on that? Would that be useful? If we're thinking consciously, we're thinking, that probably is not a good idea, right? Because what happens when you ruminate on something, I don't know if you know the term ruminate. It's literally, it's like from like cows and sheep chewing grass, and that's what our mind does with these things that have upset us, especially with things that annoy us. We sort of chew on those mentally, so to speak. We just turn them over and over and over and over. And what happens is that our initial reactions become stronger the more we think about something, right? So if somebody has said something to you, it's a little bit, a little hint of disrespect, right? In the beginning, your reaction's like, wait a second, was that actually a compliment? This expression, backhanded compliment. There's like, oh, nice of you to show up on time, for example. Was that actually a compliment? So in the beginning, it's just a doubt. But if we think about it, we're like, they're always blaming me for things. They're always trying to give me a hard time. They're always trying to pretend they're holier than I am, or they're always better than I am. The more you think about that, the more intense it gets. And then by the end of 30 minutes contemplating that, you can be pretty furious at that person and like pretty determined that they are intentionally making your life worse. And here's the thing, in a sense, they're making your life worse, right? Because they just ruined 30 minutes of your time. You just spent 30 minutes just thinking these negative trains of thought, right? You burned 30 minutes of your precious, precious, precious life thinking about these negative things, increasing your stress and damaging your relationship with that person and so forth. But here's the other thing, it's actually not their fault. It's our habitual pattern of obsessing over these things and clinging on to these things and then turning them over and over and over in our mind. We're the ones who are pumping energy into this situation. And there was a story that I read when I was in college, a long time ago now. It was a Zen story that there were these two monks, an elder monk and a younger monk, walking through the forest. And they came to a river, and there was a woman there who was struggling to get across the river, trying to figure out how to get across the river. Now, these monks had taken a vow never to touch a woman, like not even hold a hand or whatever. It's very strict, to keep these boundaries of celibacy and so on. But clearly this woman was struggling and needed help getting across the river. So the elder monk offered to pick up this woman and carry her across the river and put her on the other side, and she went on about her way. And the younger monk followed, and they continued on their journey. An hour or two later, the younger monk, he was like, said to the elder, I can't believe you picked up that woman. I can't believe you violated your discipline to do this, to pick up this woman. And how can you do this? Like, don't you respect your vows, or what's going on? And the elder one says to the younger, he says, I put that woman down 2 hours ago, but you're still carrying her. Right? You're still carrying that in your mind. So our mind has this incredible power to obsess on these stories, and it's like it's like the programming department on the TV of our mind is doesn't necessarily have, is not necessarily the wisest programming in the world, right? You know the stuff that people have an appetite for, in TV and movies, and sex and violence and intense drama and blame and these talk shows. My wife, when she was in Europe, they had like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, they used to watch like Jerry Springer show, right? Which at the time was the pinnacle of degenerate talk shows. It's like intentionally bring these people together and foment, fighting and conflict and throwing chairs and so forth. So the people who are creating this programming, they're obviously interested in capturing people's attention, right? They want to capture people's attention and interest so they can sell them commercials. One goal, right? Get people to watch, sell them commercials. And now social media does the same, right? And websites do the same. And so these things are actually intended to have a bit of an addictive quality because there are people who make money off of our attention. And I'm not a Luddite. I have, spent some time on social media, but I definitely appreciate the addictive quality of these things. Now, even without social media and TV and so forth, our brain can do that same darn thing. And it can obsess on things. And the programming departments, whoever's in charge of causing us to think about this or think about that inside our mind, again, is not necessarily that wise and doesn't necessarily have our best long-term interests in mind. And so we need to intervene in what we pay attention to. And obviously, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, as they say, right? I'm sure you're already thinking about these kinds of things, but we need to take control of what we pay attention to. And that's really what mindfulness and meditation are about. They're about increasing our strength, our capacity to control what our mind is thinking about. So if we notice ourselves starting to obsess on something that someone said to us, or some bad thing that happened, something we're worried about, and so forth, we can just think, this is not helping. I'm gonna stop thinking about that because it's just not helping right now. Now, because only your mental awareness can ruminate on things in that way, one of the easiest, best, cleanest, simplest ways to interrupt, we interrupt this programming, interrupt this disturbing programming to bring you an inner peace break. One of the most helpful things you can do is to become aware of the present moment, and you just begin to tap into your sensory awareness. Because simply, if you fill your mind with the circumstances around you, you can't pay attention to your normal trains of thought. If you're actually directing your attention and filling your mind with these things around you, you can't pay attention to your normal trains of thought. And so that's why we've already developed a lot of coping mechanisms, right? There's people who, and often we have physical activities that we like to do because they help to take our mind off our problems. Maybe we go for a walk or a run. Some people, they work on, they do knitting, or they work on their car, or they do computer programming, or whatever they do for fun that gathers your attention and focuses your attention. It interrupts the normal programming. So there's a fancy word for this normal programming that we have. It's called the default mode network. Sometimes this term will come up in articles and books about the way the brain works and so forth. But basically, there's a bunch of parts of the brain that work together as what's called the default mode. When you're not intentionally trying to direct your awareness, that there are these certain patterns that come up, and they're often pretty negative. They can have a tendency to skew negative. And if you look at what's on TV, it tends to skew, a little bit violent and, dramatic and intense and so forth. Because that that connects with us when we just want to relax and decompress, right? It's sort of our mind kind of enters into that mode a little bit anyway, and so but it's not the most helpful thing we can do. So bringing our attention to the present moment, to our senses, can be very, very helpful. But then within our body, in particular, your bodily awareness, your tactile awareness, so your sense of where your body is positioned in space, the feelings and so forth inside your body, from within these 5 senses, your bodily awareness is very special. Because your bodily awareness can tell you things that your eyes can't tell you. Like it can tell you, where is there some tension in my body? Where is there some comfort, discomfort in my body? Where, for example, is there some stress in my body? And so there is a practice called body scanning, which basically is just taking your mental awareness through your body, becoming aware of the soles of your feet. Often they work from the top down. Sometimes I like to work from the bottom up, your feet. But basically you move your mind through your body and just feel how your body feels when you're not touching it, right? Because there's this resting awareness. There's this sort of resting, it's like the background noise, like the background static in our body. This potential to be aware. And when we tap into our body, we can become much more aware of discomfort, stress in our body, and we can use the rhythm of our breathing to begin to settle that down. Now, why the breath, right? I don't know, I've pondered that a lot. Like, why does everybody talk about breathing, breathing, breathing? Seems like boring. Why can't you meditate on something else, you know? Well, of course you can. There's tons of meditations, and they all have their own benefits and so forth. Breathing is a perennial favorite for a bunch of reasons. One of the reasons is we like to pay attention to things that move. You know, our minds tend to like to watch things that move and so forth. So even within our body, where there's a bit of movement, the in-breath, the out-breath, even though it's just a little bit of movement, it can capture our attention a little bit better because it's moving a little bit. But the other thing is that our body is actually stretching a bit. Sometimes I think about, I've spent some time trying to, sit in perfect meditation posture, which, that's a skill, but you don't have to be in perfect meditation posture. It's sort of optional. But like, if you really want a perfect posture and so forth in meditation, what you quickly come up against is that it's hard, right? It's a bit of a physical training. And the reason it's a bit hard to have good meditation posture or sit, or have good posture in general, is because our bodies are heavy, right? Like, all bodies are heavy. Everything has weight, right? So everybody is a weightlifter, right? Because my arm weighs whatever, 10 pounds, and this arm weighs 10 pounds, and my legs weigh, and my torso weighs, my head weighs. We're always lifting weights, right? But the weight that we're lifting is our own body. And not only are we lifting this body up, right? But we're having to stretch the body, because our body is like a plastic sack. Again, I'm giving all these not very flattering depictions of what we're like, but I find it helpful to think that our body is really just a plastic sack, and it tends to tighten up over time, right? We tend to get smaller rather than bigger, because there's a bit of tension on the sack. It's like we're shrink wrapped, right? It's like you're walking around in shrink wrap, like that luggage they shrink wrap at the airport. So there is this sheet of tissue that covers our entire body. It's called myofascial tissue. And it covers all of our muscles and all of our bones and holds the whole thing together. So if you're reaching out your arms and you're stretching your arm and you feel a little bit of pain, a little bit of a painful feeling as you're stretching your fingers or stretching your arm and so forth, that pain is because you're actually stretching this tissue. And so every moment we're actually working against gravity, and we're working against this shrink wrap packaging that we're in. We're trying to struggle against this claustrophobic shrink wrap packaging that we're in to make our bodies a bit more spacious and a bit more open. And what happens every time you breathe, you expand, right? You make your body a little bit bigger, and then you relax, and then you expand, you relax, and so forth. And that rhythm is really useful, right? When people are weightlifting, they use a rhythm, right? Lift, relax. And with everything in our life, a rhythm really helps. Um, Previously, the question had come up about, is it possible to be too much focused on the inside or too much focused on the outside? And I said, yeah, there is. You need a balance. You need some rhythm. With most things, they work better if there's a bit of a rhythm, right? Like, okay, meditate, relax, go about your business. But go back to meditating, relax, and go about your business. Whether you're exercising, relax, right? Lift weights, stretch. These kinds of rhythms are important. And our breath provides a natural rhythm, right? A natural rhythm of stretching, getting a bit bigger, and then relaxing. And the relaxing is very important to help ensure that we don't get tense, right? Sometimes if you sit in meditation posture and really try to force yourself, you can come away and you're actually not feeling that much better. You're feeling a little bit, my back hurts and so forth. It's just that we're not accustomed to it. It's just like doing a new exercise we hadn't done so much. But when you're focusing on your breath, it can also help you to make sure that you're breathing in and always stretching and opening up areas inside your body that may be a bit tense, but then relaxing and not like holding, even not trying to hold your body open, but also not trying to hold your body closed. And that rhythm can be very, very helpful. There's a fundamental dynamic in our mind that one of my mentors, my teachers, he talks about a lot. All drama on TV is always framed in terms of a victim, a villain, and a hero. It's called the drama triangle, right? There's always some victim, like somebody's being hurt. There's always some villain who's the bad guy. And there's always some hero, or maybe the victim becomes the hero and so forth. But these three dynamics, they sort of play back and forth all the time. And that's what makes for interesting TV watching. But that drama is also playing out in our life. So think of something in your life that is unfair and a little bit oppressive. And you have activated the victim mindset, that victim perspective. Now, I'm not saying that it is fair, and I'm not saying that, you're not oppressed, but I'm saying that the tendency is to feel a victim mindset where basically forces outside of us have more power than we have. That's the dynamic. Something outside of us has more power than we have. The hero mindset is where we have more power than things outside of us. And so in a sense, when we're trying to learn meditation, we're all victims of our own darn obsessive minds, right? We're all victims of our own unhelpful reactions. We're all victims of our own tendency towards becoming stressed. And with meditation, literally, we're just trying to become heroes in our own story. We're trying to become heroes where we are having more power than our surroundings, so that instead of having a passive, stressed reaction, we're having an active, calming, controlled reaction in our life. We are trying to become heroes in our own story. And trying to not be villains in the lives of the people around us. Normally a villain, these days dramas are more nuanced, right? There's not as much black and white. Normally you begin to get into the backstory of the villain and why they hurt people and so forth. But villains come out of victims, right? If you're really hurt, then you try to lash out. There's a lot of side effects to your activity, and so you're becoming a villain. So we're even victims of our own body, right? Because we've all got this heavy load to carry, 100 and X pounds, right? Or kilograms, tens of kilograms, whatever you are, 50 kilograms, whatever. We've got this weight that we're all carrying as a burden. We literally carry it through our lives, and we're living inside this compressed, shrink-wrapped sack of our body. And so it's natural to feel a little bit like a victim. And if we look at our posture, we can think, actually, is my posture the posture of someone who's a little bit oppressed by life? Or is my posture the posture of someone who has some strength and power in my life? When I take a breath, right? Is it a breath of somebody who really has some control over their life, like a king or a queen, or a billionaire, the modern equivalent of kings and queens, right? Somebody who has control over their lives, right? So just having a breath, sitting with a good posture, feeling this sense of openness and strength in our own body, becoming aware of the present moment. These are powerful ways of beginning to get control of our own story, becoming more the hero of our own story, and beginning to get control of this inner programming, that instead of obsessing over how we're a victim because of the things that people said to us and the circumstances in our life and how difficult our life is and so forth, we begin to think, okay, I can be a hero even in the face of this. I may not have power to control the external circumstances, but I can control my internal reaction to it. I can control what I'm paying attention to. This way. Okay, so I've gone on a little bit long. I got enthusiastic there, but I want to make sure that we have time for meditation, and then at the end of the meditation, we'll do an exercise of mindful listening where we can share thoughts with one another. Okay, so for our meditation, we can again return to a comfortable posture, but this time we can become a bit aware of the weight of our body. Become aware of how our body might be a little bit compressed. We can try to take a more expansive posture, not straining, but just feeling like we're fully upright in our posture, a bit expansive. Lifting up our chest and our heart a bit. And smiling gently, lifting up the corners of our mouth. Even inside our body, we can feel that we're gently lifting our internal organs. Even our internal organs, they have some weight to them. We're gently lifting them up, lifting our whole body, but not in a straining way. We just take a deep breath and feel, can we expand? Can we even feel our breath in our hands and feet? It's the tiniest sensation. We breathe in deeply, the sensation of expansion. And then we relax. And then again, as we breathe in, we expand a bit, and then relax. And not straining, not being tense. If it becomes uncomfortable, we just become aware of our surroundings around us. But if it's comfortable, we just focus on holding our posture in an open way, feeling like we can be where we are, the hero of our own inner story. Even for a few moments, taking control of our own awareness, our own attention. And if our mind becomes distracted, we can return our attention to our posture, breathing in, feeling a sense of expansion. Breathing out, relaxing, contracting. We know we can consciously breathe in and out, but we can try to notice how, without any intention, our body is naturally expanding and contracting without our even trying. There's a natural, unconscious rhythm of our breath. And just try to feel that very, very quiet, very subtle expansion and contraction. What happens when we just let our breath flow? If our mind wanders, we just return to breathing and notice how our breath naturally expands and contracts, even just a tiny bit, without our intending to. Try to feel that. And the rhythm of our breath is quiet and soft. Just feel that natural, quiet, soft rhythm. We can open our eyes and rise from our meditation.